So yeah, hi again. Getting in front of the camera after a long time. Actually, I took a long break because now I'm studying MA Counseling Psychology. I guess the majority of my videos in the next 2 years would be related to psychology. This would be useful for all the psychology students and anyone who has some interest in psychology. I'm in first semester and we have this course, Philosophical Foundation in Psychology. So we were given this assignment, compare and contrast structuralism and functionalism. You can find a lot about functionalism and structuralism in books, of course, and online and in so many places actually. So why am I making this video? Like, what do I add? When I'm studying psychology, I try to apply all of that in my own life. Like, how does that relate to my own experience? Is it just theoretical or can I really use it? When I talk about functionalism and structuralism, the constant idea behind it is it really useful? Can I apply it? And if it's not useful, why not? So first, some basic information. The first point would be about founding of both of these schools of thought or philosophical theories. Most of these videos that I'm going to make from now on would be directed at actually future psychology students. I know sometimes psychology classes get boring and you just come out wondering what the F just happened in the class. My effort is to give you some perspective that you typically don't get in the class. So yeah, this is just for those who really like to learn. If you're in the same boat as me, like I came to this course, I joined this course to actually learn something. So yeah, so structuralism, Wilhem Wundt and E.B. Titchener, these are the two names, okay? Now, Wilhem Wundt founded the first psychological laboratory. So basically, Wilhem Wundt is the father of experimental psychology. And then we talk about E.B. Titchener. These are the two people that you need to care about, that's all. And E.B. Titchener, he became this distinguished disciple of Wilhem Wundt. He refined that psychology. Whatever Wundt had said, he refined it and he popularized it. And finally, he gave the name structuralism. That school of thought, he gave that name. Now, let's come to functionalism. So the biggest name in functionalism is William James. Like, William James is almost synonymous with functionalism. He's the pioneer. Other big names are John Dewey and James Angell. And they are considered to be the founders of functionalism. Let's go with the broad assumption first. I want you to get an understanding of structuralism and functionalism. What are they about? So, structuralism is broadly based on the idea that just like physical matter, conscious experience can be broken down into simpler elements like sensations and feelings. I'll explain it in a bit. Functionalism is concerned with studying the function of organisms' behavior and consciousness in its adaptation to the environment. Yeah, I mean, this is what they teach in class, but I'll explain now. The difference, the broad idea of structuralism and functionalism, I actually like these approaches. Both of these are considered to be obsolete by now, but when I look at them, I actually find both of them interesting and both have some importance. I'll tell you why. Structuralism is basically talking about breaking everything into parts, because to understand something, you have to break it into parts and then study those parts. You have to come down to the atoms, particles, protons and neutrons. To understand light, you understand photons. The smallest particles and their nature, if we understand them, we can understand the bigger concepts as well. Structuralism, like, it started in the late 19th century. And the strange thing is, even till today, despite all the advancements in neuroscience or psychology, there is no consensus on conscious experience. There is no consensus on what really is consciousness all about. So that's why it's called the big problem of consciousness. And we are still studying that, why are we conscious? So the approach of structuralism is perfectly all right. It is to break it and then understand it. That's how we understand everything, right? If I had to understand how a car works, if I didn't know anything, and you gave me a car, I would have to systematically dismantle it and see what are all the parts inside of it and how they're all connected and how they're all working. So this is what structuralism is. You understand the structure of it. So now think about this. Right now, what am I experiencing? I'm sitting here talking to you, and of course I'm having a conscious experience right now. Now to understand this scientifically, what do? We try to understand each part of it. Like, what am I feeling right now? What am I sensing? So in this experience, I'm sitting on a chair So if I had to break it down, I'm sitting on a chair, my legs are rested, I'm feeling all right, there are no particular emotions, and I'm looking at all of these things, and I'm speaking and I can hear myself speak. All my sensations are working. I can feel this desk on my hands. I can see this camera, I can see this laptop, and I can hear my voice. These are all sensations, and I'm feeling actually nothing in particular. It's just a neutral feeling that I have right now, and everything comes together to form this experience that I have right now. So structuralism would typically want to understand each of those parts of it. So that's the broad idea of structuralism. Now we come to functionalism. Functionalism is purpose-based. Like why? Like instead of understanding how the car has been made, we see that, okay, the nature has given us this car, okay? The idea is you get a car and you're like, what can I do with it? Why is it there? What is the use of this? And how can I make my life better with this? Or maybe how can I make my survival better with this? Can I use this car to run away from a tiger? Yes, I can. So that's the use. That's what functionalism is about. So we would like, why did we develop a car? We developed the car because we could reduce the time of travel and thus improve our productivity and thus bring more results and change the world at a faster rate ultimately. So that would be the functional approach. What is the function of this car? And how ultimately it fits into the change that is happening in the world and how the world is evolving. And I like this also. So again, if I'm looking at a car, just understanding how it is made, just understanding the structure of it is not enough. I need to understand the purpose of it, the functions as well. Although these names are very self-explanatory, but I'm explaining it like this because I want you to connect it to your day-to-day life. So now coming back to the conscious experience, my conscious experience right now, I talked about the structure of it. Now I'll talk about the function of it. So instead of caring about that I can feel my hand on the desk, functionalism would say, what is the use of this conscious experience? So this conscious experience is allowing me to actually teach you something. Okay, me sitting here talking, hearing myself speak, looking at this laptop, reading out. I'm doing all of this to actually teach you something. This is the function of my experience right now. And that is important too. This is why I think both of these approaches are really important. And in a way, these are not obsolete. This is ingrained in scientific work. You understand the structure, you understand the function. Let's move on to the next point. Definition of psychology. Now, of course, structuralism and functionalism, they've both defined psychology differently. Let's hear them. Wilhem Wundt, he defines psychology as psychology is the study of immediate experience or consciousness which can be analyzed into simpler psychic elements. What are the psychic elements? Feelings, sensations, all of these. And functionalism, this was given by William James, the main guy, that psychology is the science of mental life. Mental life means consciousness and all the mental processes. Psychology is the science of mental life, both of its phenomena and of its condition. Now personally, I didn't like this definition very much because it does not give the idea of functionalism very well. It does not describe functionalism very well. But anyway, he's the main guy, he knows better. It's the science of mental life, both of its phenomena and of its conditions. So basically, what really is mental life? What really is this conscious experience? What is this phenomena? And its conditions. Like conditions here means the environment in which this conscious experience is taking place. And how this phenomena interacts with those conditions and grows. That's what it means. This was the definition of psychology. And so the next point would be consciousness. So Wilhem Wundt, he divided conscious experience into two psychic elements, just two, sensations and feelings. And this is a smart division, I would have to say. Why? Because if you think about it, sensations are the objective parts, feelings are the subjective parts. Why? Sensation is the bodily experience. So if I do this, I can sense my hand coming down on my wrist, and I can simply sense that. That is objective. Like I would describe it the same way every time. This is very objective. If I see something, I see something. That's very objective. If I see color red, I would say red. That's pretty objective. There's not much else I can say about it. Yeah, that's just a sensation. And feelings are of course subjective, because you have to explain how you're feeling, and we give these words anger, fear, sadness, but these are not exact words. These are just indications toward how we are feeling, and describing how we are feeling is of course subjective. So basically Wilhem Wundt thought these are the two pillars of conscious experience, and that's all that is going on in our brain in that experience. So together they make the complete conscious experience. So the idea is that you live and die with these two things going on in your consciousness, sensations and feelings, and a mix of both, of course. So that was by Wilhem Wundt, but Titchener developed it. Okay, he defined consciousness as a sum total of a person's experiences at a given time. He added one more thing. He added images as another psychic element of consciousness. So Titchener added images. Now, what would images be? And again, this is something that I felt myself while reading Structuralism, that this is missing, because there are so many visions in our mind. We can dream, we can visualize stuff. There is a movie going on. So if I close my eyes and if I want to visualize a garden, I can, and that's an image. That's not exactly a sensation, that's not exactly a feeling. That's a different thing, and it's going on in my mind. So that was smart. He added images. Okay, so clearly sensations and feelings, they do not completely explain the whole conscious experience. There are images too. There are flashes. There are flashes of memory. So all of that. So now functionalism. What does functionalism say about consciousness? Functionalism says that consciousness is a continuous and dynamic complex, and not something composed of discrete bits joined together. This is true as well. The term which William James used was streams of consciousness. Streams. Like it's a flowing thing, and it is. You can try to divide it in as many parts as you want, but if you think about this, it's all a big mix. You cannot really separate one from another. A river would be a perfect analogy. Like in a river, there is waste from factories, there is water from the mountains, and there is dirt, there is piss, there is shit, and all of that comes together to form that river. And that river is the conscious experience, and it's true. So in this moment, can I really separate the sensations from the feelings and the feelings from the images? I really can't. Can I have one without the other? I don't think so. Now, one huge difference between structuralism and functionalism is the mind-body problem. And in this one, I think functionalism wins. Yeah. Because they got it right. Structuralism, they made a mistake here. I think they didn't think it through. I don't know how they missed it. With a little bit of common sense, I think you can understand this mind-body problem. And I'll tell you what it is. The mind-body problem stands for the question which asks whether mind and body are related or not. Do they function independently of each other, or are they related, interdependent? Now, to us now, it's common sense, right? Of course they're related. But I don't know, a century ago probably it wasn't that obvious. I don't know why, but it just wasn't. And this is what made me lose a bit of respect for structuralism, because I think it's actually very obvious that mind and body are related, and it's not like I was specifically taught. If I really had to analyze my own experiences, yes, they are related, of course they are. Anyway, I'll still explain. And this is by both Wundt and Titchener. They both thought mind and body are separate. And the technical term would be psychophysical parallelism. Psychophysical parallelism. It means that mind and body are parallel and not interacting systems. I mean, it really sounds stupid. They say that mind doesn't depend on body and can be studied directly and separately. Functionalism, all of the functionalists, if that's a word, they believed in the interaction, of course. They were interactionists. They said that mind and body do interact. They are not parallelists. So functionalism believes that mind and body interact with each other, and they say that these cannot be separated. There is a constant interplay between the two. Obviously, there is. So I'll go with functionalism on this one. Now, methods. In structuralism, broadly, their method was, they used two methods, and introspection and experimentation. Like, these are not exactly two different things. There is quite an overlap between the two, because a lot of their experimentation involved introspection, but these are the two new things. Basically, these are the two new things that they introduced: experimentation. And what do they do in that experimentation? Mostly introspection. It wasn't done before that, and that's why Wilhem Wundt, like I said in the beginning, he's considered to be the father of experimental psychology. So what is introspection? Well, it is actually quite different from what we usually do. Like, typically what we mean by introspection is you try to understand yourself, like who you are, what do you like, what you don't like, how you can change yourself, your strengths and weaknesses and all of that. But their introspection was a bit different. Their introspection was about describing the conscious experience. That's what it was. So it was the method by which the person could analyze the conscious process for finding out how the elements were connected. So basically you're sitting there and I ask you, tell me what you are feeling exactly. That was broadly their idea of experimentation. So the idea was that they thought by analyzing each conscious experience in detail, they can understand all the elements behind it, the structure behind it. So in a way, that's their way of dismantling the car. So in real world, how do we to dismantle a car, what do? We'll take a screwdriver, we'll just undo all the nuts and bolts, and slowly we can see the car unravel all of its mysteries, what's all there. But how do we do that with conscious experience? So they thought the method was introspection. So people would just sit in a chair and they would just talk about what they were feeling, what they were experiencing, and they would note them down and each of those elements, and they would see and they would make categories of those elements and they would see how they were all connected. Like that. That was their method to understand conscious experience, to understand the structures of conscious experience. E.B. Titchener, Wilhem Wundt's disciple, he also used the same method. He just developed it a little further, he refined it. So he suggested same methods as Wundt, but he made them more formalized. He focused on pure conscious experience. Now, I wouldn't go into the details of what that meant. Basically, pure consciousness meant that you should remove stimulus error, which means that you have to talk about the experience that you are having right in that moment, minus all your past learnings and memories. For example, if you look at this paper right now, it seems white. Okay, this is white. But if you look at it in dark, it'll seem grayish. But if I ask you, what's the color of this? You'll still say white because you know it's white. So they would say, that's an error. Don't tell me what you know. Tell me what you are seeing. If you see grey, say grey. If you see white, say white. That's pure conscious experience. And what was the method of functionalism? Actually, as far as I know, functionalism didn't really have any specific method. They were trying to understand functionalism in an evolutionary sense. So William James, the main guy, he wasn't an experimentalist, but he sure recognized the importance of experimental method. Like, he didn't use it much, but he didn't reject it either. He didn't criticize it either. So yeah, if you talk about functionalism, so that's the comparison. Like, structuralism did have a method, functionalism actually didn't. Finally, the review or criticism or discussion on it. So structuralism, of course, it had some good things like I mentioned in the beginning. But of course, there are some weaknesses too. Actually, the structuralism and functionalism, they belong to the same era, and they were the two dominant thoughts in psychology at the time. So there was quite a fight between them. It was almost like two religions fighting with each other. Hindu, Muslim, I don't know. They both criticized each other and they had their reasons. The most criticized part of structuralism was its method of introspection. It actually drew a lot of criticism from functionalists and behaviorists alike, and me too. I also criticize that. I think it's not a good method. The method being introspection that we just discussed. You're talking about experimentation and you're talking about objectivity, and introspection by nature is subjective. Although I would say that's an inherent nature in psychology. When you give somebody a questionnaire like how do you feel, how do you think you are, how angry do you think you are, okay, do you get angry a lot? If you ask someone a question through a questionnaire, I get angry often, agree or disagree. Now this is so subjective. How can you compare two results? How do you know that people have interpreted them right? So yes, introspection is subjective and it should be criticized on that, but with that I would say it's a problem ingrained in psychology and not structuralism per se. But yeah, within that subjectivity, we can do better. So their introspection was just a beginning, and the modern psychology, we have found ways to make it more and more objective, but it cannot be pure maths or science. I don't think it can ever be. So maybe one day neuroscience comes up with some objective measurements of our feelings. So right now I would say it's a relative thing. In comparison to today's psychology, it was too subjective. And yeah, one more thing, that they wanted people to talk about their pure conscious experience. So in order to make them talk about their pure conscious experience, they actually trained them. They taught them how to analyze and how to describe their experience. And that training is in a way manipulating the true responses, right? It is manipulation. So it was criticized on that front too. How can you manipulate a response? The moment you manipulate it, it loses its natural value. That's what training does. Structuralists criticized functionalism because, of course, they didn't think that studying just a function of something is pure science. They thought that studying the structure was true science. Functionalism was also criticized by behaviorists because, like I said, functionalism didn't really use experimentation. They didn't use controlled experiments, and behaviorists and scientists didn't like that. You know why I use this? Yes, psychology is a science, but it can never be as good a science as physics, as chemistry, as biology. So this is why when we say true experiments, true science, true objectivity, nobody has that. Neither behaviorists, nor functionalists, nor structuralists. Nobody. You can criticize all you want, but at the end of the day, psychology is based in philosophy. Psychology is about philosophy. So you are philosophizing. Yeah. And in science we try to have some predictability. Like if you understand something, you should be able to predict the future with it, right? So behaviorists thought that just understanding why something works does not really say much. Like, I disagree. I still think that studying the functions of conscious experience or consciousness is equally important, whether it's science or not. So anyway, I had to tell you about the criticism that it drew from other people. I don't agree with it. And this is why I say, despite all of that criticism, this functionalism, it actually played an important role in starting the evolutionary psychology. And even today, studying the evolutionary functions of psychology is an important topic. It is. So my final words would be, both structuralism and functionalism aren't very popular words today. They are obsolete schools of thought, but they originated from some very valuable insights, and those insights continue to be an ingrained part of modern psychology in so many ways. So yeah, that was my understanding of functionalism and structuralism so far. This so far word is very important. My course has just started, and this is what I know so far. And if I know more, if I understand more, I'll come up with an update. And until then, those who are just beginning can probably benefit from this. So yeah, that's about it.